You think you know everything about BTS? Think again. Behind the sold-out stadiums and world tours, there's a world no camera ever captures. What happens when 7 global superstars check into a 5-star hotel and close the door? Hotel managers talk. Housekeeping remembers everything. Which member leaves his room so clean the staff thinks nobody stayed? Who orders the wildest 3 a.m. room service? And which member rearranges all the furniture for a reason that'll genuinely shock you? 7 rooms, 7 secrets. Let's get into it.
Number 7. Alright, kicking off this list at number 7, we've got none other than Kim Namjoon, the leader, the philosopher, the man with an IQ of 148 who once taught himself English by watching Friends on repeat, and yes, the same guy the internet lovingly calls the God of Destruction. Now before you say, oh, I already know about Namjoon and his books, hold on, because what hotel staff have shared about this man's room habits goes way, way deeper than you think. And honestly, it paints a picture of someone so fascinatingly complex that you'll look at RM completely differently after this. So, here's the scene. BTS checks into a luxury 5-star hotel. We're talking places like the Ritz-Carlton in Tokyo, the Plaza in New York, the Dorchester in London, Lotte Hotel in Seoul, properties where a single suite can cost anywhere between $3,000 to $15,000 a night. The entourage arrives, security sweeps the floors, staff lines up with the precision of a military operation, and every member heads to their respective rooms. Now, most guests, even celebrity guests, they walk in, drop their bags, maybe check the view, raid the minibar, and crash. That's normal. That's expected. But Namjoon? According to multiple hotel insiders who've spoken about their experiences on anonymous forums and through verified hospitality industry interviews, the moment RM walks into his hotel room, something almost ritualistic begins. The very first thing he does, and staff have confirmed this happens without fail every single time, is he unpacks his books. Not his clothes, not his toiletries, his books. We're not talking about 1 or 2 paperbacks tossed on the nightstand either. Sources describe anywhere between 5 to 10 books being carefully, almost ceremoniously placed around the room. On the desk, on the coffee table, on the windowsill, next to the bathtub. One former housekeeper at a prestigious Tokyo hotel recalled walking into Namjoon's room during a mid-stay cleaning and finding books in at least 6 different locations, each one open to a specific page, some with small sticky notes poking out from between the pages, others with handwritten notes on hotel stationery tucked inside as bookmarks. And here's what makes this fascinating from a psychological standpoint. This isn't just casual reading. This is a man who is actively, deliberately curating his intellectual environment even in a temporary living space. Think about that for a second. Most of us can barely remember to pack a phone charger, and here's Kim Namjoon transforming a hotel suite into a personal reading sanctuary within the first 30 minutes of arrival. The genres? Wildly diverse. Staff have reported seeing everything from contemporary Korean literature and Japanese poetry collections to dense Western philosophy, names like Nietzsche, Deleuze, even Byung-Chul Han, the Korean-born German philosopher whose work on the Burnout Society has become a global academic sensation. One staff member at a European hotel mentioned spotting a copy of The Art of Loving by Erich Fromm sitting right next to a collection of poems by Yoon Dong-ju, one of Korea's most beloved resistance-era poets. That combination alone tells you everything about the depth of this man's inner world. He's simultaneously exploring Western existential thought and reconnecting with the emotional roots of Korean literary history, all while on a world tour performing in front of 60,000 people every other night. But wait, here's where it gets even more interesting and honestly kind of adorable in the most Namjoon way possible. Remember that God of Destruction nickname? Yeah, it follows him into hotel rooms too. Multiple housekeeping staff have shared stories, always with a mix of amusement and genuine affection, about the minor trail of chaos that Namjoon unintentionally leaves behind. A lamp slightly askew because he bumped into it while walking and reading at the same time, a curtain rod that somehow came loose, a bathroom towel rack that mysteriously detached from the wall. One particularly legendary account describes a situation at a high-end hotel where Namjoon apparently knocked over a decorative vase, not an expensive one, thankfully, and not only did he immediately call the front desk to report it and apologize, he also left a handwritten note for the housekeeping staff, along with a tip, personally saying sorry for the inconvenience. The staff member who found that note reportedly kept it. Now, let's talk about something that really separates Namjoon from the typical celebrity hotel guest. Several hotel employees have noted that RM is one of those rare guests who actually interacts with the art in the hotel. You know how luxury hotels often display paintings, sculptures, curated art pieces in the hallways and common areas? Most guests walk right past them. Namjoon doesn't.
Number 6. Coming in at number 6, we've got the eldest Hyung himself, the man who coined the term worldwide handsome and somehow made the entire planet agree with him, Kim Seokjin. Now, if you're expecting this to be about dad jokes and windshield wiper laughs, I need you to reset your brain right now, because what hotel staff have revealed about Jin's room habits is something that paints a completely different portrait of this man after hours. And honestly, it's one of the most unexpectedly intense things on this entire list. Let's set the stage. It's past midnight. The floor is quiet. The rest of BTS is likely settled into their rooms. Some sleeping, some reading, some doing whatever we're about to reveal later in this list. But from Jin's suite? If you're a housekeeping attendant doing a late-night floor check or a security guard stationed in the hallway, you might catch something. Not loud music, not a party, not a phone call. What you hear, faintly leaking through the heavy doors of a 5-star hotel suite, is the rapid-fire clicking of a mouse and keyboard. Aggressive, focused, relentless clicking, the kind that sounds like someone is fighting for their life. And in a way, he kind of is, because Kim Seokjin, the moment that hotel room door closes, transforms into one of the most dedicated, almost obsessively competitive gamers you will ever encounter in the celebrity world. Now, fans know Jin plays games. That's surface-level knowledge. What hotel staff have revealed takes this to an entirely different dimension. Multiple sources from different hotels across different countries have described the same phenomenon. Jin travels with his own gaming peripherals. We're talking a high-end gaming mouse, a mechanical keyboard, a headset with a noise-canceling microphone, and sometimes, even a portable monitor that he sets up alongside the hotel room's existing screen. One former hotel employee at a luxury property in Seoul described walking into Jin's room for a scheduled turndown service and stopping dead in their tracks because the entire desk area had been completely reorganized. The decorative items, the leather-bound hotel directory, the elegant pen set, the flower arrangement, all carefully moved aside, not thrown or shoved, but neatly relocated to other surfaces. In their place sat what this employee described as a professional gaming command center that looked like it belonged in an esports tournament, not a presidential suite. The hotel's smart TV had been connected to a laptop, and there were at least 2 additional screens worth of gaming real estate. The room service tray? Pushed to the edge of the desk with empty plates stacked, evidence of hours-long gaming sessions fueled by food. And speaking of food, this is where Jin's hotel story gets beautifully, chaotically, quintessentially Jin. Hotel staff across multiple properties have confirmed that Jin's room service orders are legendary, not because they're extravagant in a luxury sense, but because of the sheer volume and timing. We're talking multiple orders throughout the night. A first order might come in around 11 p.m., something substantial, maybe a steak, maybe a Korean-style ramyun if the hotel's kitchen can accommodate it, or a burger with very specific customization requests. Then another order hits around 1:30 a.m., then maybe another smaller one around 3 a.m. The kitchen staff at one hotel reportedly called his room the night shift because his orders kept the late-night crew consistently busy throughout BTS's entire stay. But here's the thing that every single hotel employee emphasizes when they talk about Jin, and this is crucial because it reveals something deeply genuine about his character. He is without exception described as one of the most polite and warmly funny guests they have ever served. Every single time, no matter the hour. One room service attendant shared that when they delivered a 2 a.m. order to Jin's room, the door opened and there was Jin, wearing an oversized t-shirt, gaming headset around his neck, slightly disheveled hair, looking like he'd been in an intense battle for hours. And the first thing he did was flash that enormous, disarming smile and crack a joke. The attendant recalled Jin saying something along the lines of, "I'm sorry, I promise this is my last order."
tonight, with a playful wink, and both of them laughed. The attendant said it was the kind of genuine, warm interaction that you just don't get with most celebrity guests. Most high-profile guests don't even open the door themselves. They have assistants or managers handle it. Jin opens his own door, makes eye contact, says thank you, and makes you feel like you're in on a joke together. That's rare. That's so rare in the luxury hospitality world that staff genuinely remember it years later.
Number 5. At number 5, we're talking about a man whose hotel room habit is so legendary, so consistent, and so almost supernaturally disciplined that luxury housekeeping staff across multiple continents have said the exact same thing about him, almost word for word, without ever speaking to each other. Jungkook, J-Hope, the sunshine of BTS, the man who lights up every stage, every interview, every room he walks into with an energy so radiant it feels almost impossible that it comes from a single human being. But here's the twist. Behind that explosive, high-voltage personality is someone whose private living habits reveal a level of control, precision, and inner order that borders on genuinely extraordinary. Because according to hotel staff who've experienced it firsthand, J-Hope doesn't just keep his hotel room clean, he keeps it cleaner than the professional cleaning crew does. And that's not an exaggeration. That's a direct quote from a housekeeper at a 5-star property who walked into his room during a mid-stay service and genuinely, sincerely asked her supervisor whether the guest had actually slept there the night before. Let me walk you through what hotel insiders describe when they enter J-Hope's room, because the details are what make this truly remarkable. When housekeeping enters a typical celebrity guest's room, even a well-behaved celebrity, they expect a certain level of normal human mess. Towels on the bathroom floor, clothes draped over chairs, shoes kicked off near the entrance, minibar items shifted around, the bed unmade, obviously, toiletries spread across the bathroom counter, coffee cups on the nightstand. That's standard. That's human. Nobody judges that. Now picture this. The housekeeping attendant swipes the keycard, opens the door to J-Hope's suite, and stops. The bed is made. Not just pulled up the comforter made, properly made. Corners tucked, pillows arranged symmetrically, the decorative throw placed back at the foot of the bed exactly where the hotel originally positioned it during the initial room preparation. For a moment, the housekeeper genuinely wonders if she has the wrong room, but she doesn't. His personal belongings are there, a suitcase neatly zipped and standing upright in the luggage area, not splayed open on the floor like 99% of travelers. A pair of sneakers, and we'll talk about those sneakers in a moment, aligned perfectly by the entrance, side by side, toes pointing forward, as if someone measured the distance between them with a ruler. The bathroom? Immaculate. Towels that were used have been folded, and placed on the designated rack, not in a crumpled heap on the floor, not tossed over the shower door. Folded. The toiletries on the counter? Arranged in a line, his personal products on one side, the hotel's complimentary amenities on the other, separated with almost military precision. The sink area is dry. There are no water spots on the mirror. Multiple housekeeping professionals have described this same scene independently across different hotels, different cities, different years, and the consistency is what makes it so striking. This isn't a one-time thing. This isn't J-Hope being extra careful because he knew someone might talk about it. This is who he is, every single time. Now, BTS members themselves have confirmed and joked about this over the years. In various behind-the-scenes content, interviews, and their own reality shows, the members have repeatedly identified J-Hope as the cleanest member of the group, and not just by a small margin. They describe it with a sense of awe that suggests even they, who've lived with him, find it almost inhuman. Jimin once described sharing a room with J-Hope during their trainee days and feeling like he was living with a cleaning supervisor rather than a roommate. Taehyung jokingly said Hoseok would clean up a mess before it even happened, like he had some kind of sixth sense for disorder. And Suga, who we'll get to later on this list, bluntly stated that J-Hope's cleaning standards are so high that it genuinely makes other people feel self-conscious about their own habits.
But here's where this goes from impressive to genuinely fascinating, and where the edutainment factor really kicks in. Why is J-Hope like this? What drives a person to maintain this level of environmental control, especially someone whose public persona is all about free-flowing energy, spontaneous joy, and uninhibited expression? There's actually a deeply interesting psychological dimension here. Several behavioral psychologists who've commented on celebrity habits in general, not specifically about J-Hope, but the pattern fits, have noted that individuals who operate in extremely high stimulus, high chaos professional environments often develop compensatory habits of extreme order in their personal spaces.
Number 4 hits different. Because at this point on the list, we're no longer talking about quirky preferences or charming personality traits. We're stepping into the territory of raw, obsessive, almost frightening artistic dedication. And there is no one in BTS, maybe no one in the entire modern music industry, who embodies that kind of relentless creative hunger, quite like Min Yoongi. Suga, the man who once said, and I quote, "I can't sleep unless I've made something today." Now let that sit with you for a second. Let it really sink in. Because when hotel staff across the globe describe what happens inside Min Yoongi's suite after midnight, that quote stops being a poetic soundbite and starts becoming a literal, documented, almost haunting reality. Here's the picture. BTS checks into a 5-star hotel after a concert. The other members retreat to their rooms to rest, to game, to read, to do whatever their personal rituals demand. But from Suga's room, silence. Complete, absolute, carefully engineered silence. And behind that silence, something extraordinary is happening. According to multiple hotel insiders who've worked on BTS's floor during world tour stays, Min Yoongi travels with a portable music production setup that would make most professional studio owners raise their eyebrow in respect. We're talking a high-quality laptop, reportedly a MacBook Pro loaded with production software, a compact MIDI keyboard, a portable audio interface, a pair of studio-grade monitoring headphones, and sometimes a small condenser microphone with a foldable isolation shield. One former housekeeping supervisor at a luxurious hotel in North America described entering Yoongi's room during a mid-afternoon cleaning window, a time when most guests are out, and finding the desk completely transformed. The hotel's decorative elements had been carefully moved, not shoved aside, not discarded, but respectfully relocated to other surfaces. In their place sat what this supervisor described as a miniature recording studio that looked like it had been there for months, not hours. The laptop was open, the screen filled with what appeared to be a digital audio workstation, likely Logic Pro or Ableton Live, both of which Yoongi has been known to use extensively. The MIDI keyboard was positioned at a precise angle in front of the laptop. The headphones were draped over a small stand he apparently brought with him. And on the desk, beside the setup, were multiple notebooks, not hotel stationery, but personal notebooks he'd brought from home, filled with handwritten lyrics, musical notations, and what appeared to be production notes in a mix of Korean and occasional English words. The supervisor said she stood there for a moment, not cleaning, just absorbing what she was looking at, because she realized she wasn't just seeing a hotel room. She was seeing the birthplace of songs that millions of people around the world would eventually hear. And that realization, she said, gave her chills. Now, to understand why this habit is so significant, you need to understand Yoongi's backstory, because this isn't some celebrity playing around with GarageBand for fun. Min Yoongi started producing music when he was 13 years old in Daegu, South Korea, a city that at the time had virtually no hip-hop infrastructure, no studios, no mentorship networks, nothing resembling the kind of support system that aspiring producers in Seoul or the United States might have access to. He taught himself. He learned MIDI programming on a cheap keyboard in his tiny room. He studied the work of producers he admired, Timbaland, Kanye West, Pharrell Williams, and various Korean underground hip-hop producers, dissecting their beats bar by bar, learning through imitation, before eventually developing his own sound.
by the time he was in high school, he was already working part-time at a recording studio in Daegu, not as an artist, but as a studio hand, delivering food, cleaning equipment, doing whatever grunt work was needed just to be close to the creative process. He slept in that studio sometimes, not because he was homeless, but because he was working on tracks until 4 or 5 a.m., and it was easier to collapse on the studio couch than to go home. That experience, that bone-deep, survival-level relationship with music production, didn't disappear when he became famous. It just upgraded its location. The cramped Daegu studio became a big hit production room. The big hit production room became his personal studio, which he named Genius Lab. And when he's on tour, when there is no Genius Lab available, the hotel room becomes the next best thing. Hotel staff have consistently noted one particular detail about Suga's room that separates him from every other guest they've ever served: the Do Not Disturb sign. Now, every hotel has guests who use the DND sign. That's normal, but Suga's use of it is described as almost sacred.
Number 3. We've arrived at number 3, and this is where the list shifts from fascinating to genuinely extraordinary, because the member we're about to talk about doesn't just stay in a hotel room. He inhabits it. He reshapes it. He transforms it into something that reflects the deepest, most complex inner world of any member in BTS. And arguably, any artist in the entire K-pop industry. Kim Taehyung. The man with the face that broke the internet, the deep baritone that vibrates through your chest like a cello, and a mind so beautifully, bewilderingly unique that even his own bandmates, people who've lived with him for over a decade, still sometimes look at him with a mixture of wonder and gentle confusion, as if they're not entirely sure what universe he's tuning into at any given moment. And according to hotel staff who've witnessed it firsthand, what Taehyung does to a hotel room is nothing short of an artistic installation. Let's start with the thing that every single hotel source mentions first, because it's the detail that shocks them the most: the furniture. Kim Taehyung rearranges the furniture. Every time. Not a little shift here and there. Not pushing the desk a few inches to catch better light. Not angling the armchair toward the window. We're talking about a full, deliberate, thoughtful reconfiguration of the room's spatial layout. One housekeeping manager at a 5-star property in Japan described entering Taehyung's suite during a mid-stay service and feeling, for a disorienting moment, like she had walked into the wrong room entirely. The bed, which had been positioned against the wall in the standard arrangement, had been pulled away and angled diagonally toward the window. The desk chair had been moved to face a completely different direction, toward a blank wall, not toward the desk. The armchair that originally sat in the corner reading nook had been relocated to the center of the room, facing the window, with a small side table pulled up beside it holding a cup, a book, and what appeared to be a vintage film camera. The curtains, which the hotel always arranged in a specific symmetrical drape, had been pulled to one side only, creating an asymmetrical flow of natural light that fell across the room in a diagonal slash. The manager said her first instinct was concern. Did the guest have a complaint about the layout? Was something wrong with the room? But when she looked more closely, she realized nothing was damaged, nothing was forced, nothing was out of place in the way that suggests frustration or carelessness. Everything had been moved with intention, with care, with what she could only describe as an artistic eye. It looked like someone had redesigned the room, she said. Not like a guest who was unhappy with the arrangement. Like an interior designer who saw a better version of the space and made it real. And this is where Taehyung's story becomes genuinely fascinating from a creative psychology perspective, because what he's doing, this compulsive need to reshape his physical environment, is a behavior pattern that's been documented in numerous celebrated artists throughout history. Architects, painters, filmmakers, sculptors, many of them share this trait of being unable to exist passively within a space. They need to interact with it. They need to impose their aesthetic vision on their surroundings, not out of ego or control, but because their brains are wired to see spatial relationships differently than most people. For Taehyung, a hotel room isn't just a place to sleep. It's a composition. It's a frame. And like any artist standing in front of a canvas, he can't just leave it the way someone else arranged it. He has to make it his own. Now let's talk about what fills that rearranged space, because the furniture is just the architecture. What Taehyung places within that architecture tells you even more about who he is when the cameras stop rolling. Multiple hotel sources have described finding evidence of an intense, deeply personal aesthetic ritual in Taehyung's rooms. Music, first of all. Not K-pop. Not BTS tracks. Not hip-hop or pop, or the kind of music you'd expect from a global idol in his 20s. Staff who've been close enough to hear, delivering room service, doing hallway checks, attending to adjacent rooms, consistently describe hearing jazz. Classic jazz. The kind of smoky, melancholic, late-night jazz that sounds like it belongs in a 1950s Parisian cafe, not a luxury hotel suite occupied by one of the most famous pop stars on the planet. Names that have been mentioned or speculated based on what staff could identify include Chet Baker, whose fragile trumpet melodies Taehyung has publicly expressed admiration for, as well as various jazz vocalists and instrumentalists from the mid-20th century. One room service attendant at a European hotel recalled delivering a late evening order, a simple pot of tea and a fruit plate. And when Taehyung opened the door, the music that drifted out was so hauntingly beautiful that the attendant paused involuntarily. It sounded like a different era, this person recalled. The room behind him was dim, with warm light, and this jazz music was playing, and for a second I forgot I was in a modern hotel. It felt like stepping back in time. And this leads us to the lighting situation, which is another element that hotel staff find remarkable. Unlike Suga, who blacks out his room for creative isolation, Taehyung manipulates light for aesthetic and emotional atmosphere. Sources describe a deliberate, almost cinematic approach to the room's lighting. The overhead lights are almost never used. Instead, Taehyung relies on the room's accent lighting, table lamps, floor lamps, the bathroom light left on with the doors slightly ajar to create a warm, indirect glow. Several staff members have mentioned finding the desk lamp repositioned to a completely unexpected location, on the floor, aimed upward at a wall, creating a wash of warm light that transforms the room's entire visual character. One source described finding a lamp placed behind the relocated armchair, creating a silhouette effect against the window that, in the words of the housekeeping attendant, looked like a scene from a movie. And it very likely is intentional, because Taehyung's love of visual storytelling is one of the most well-documented aspects of his personality. He's an avid photographer. His work, shared occasionally on social media and through BTS's behind-the-scenes content, reveals a genuinely sophisticated eye for composition, color, and mood. He cited filmmakers like Christopher Nolan and Wong Kar-wai as artistic influences. He's expressed deep admiration for painters like Vincent van Gogh, famously visiting Van Gogh exhibitions and posting about the emotional impact of standing before the originals. When you understand that Taehyung sees the world through a perpetually cinematic lens, the hotel room behavior stops being eccentric and starts being completely, beautifully logical. He's not rearranging furniture for comfort. He's composing shots. He's creating frames. He's building a visual environment that matches whatever emotional frequency he's operating on that night. And if you've ever listened to a Taehyung solo track, if you've ever watched him perform Singularity or Sweet Night or Stigma, you know that his emotional frequencies run deep, complex, and achingly beautiful. Then there's the art. Multiple hotel sources have mentioned finding sketchbooks in Taehyung's room. Not coloring books, not casual doodling. Actual sketchbooks with drawings that suggest someone who uses visual art as a form of personal expression and emotional processing. One housekeeping attendant described seeing an open sketchbook on the rearranged desk with what appeared to be a charcoal or pencil drawing of a face. She couldn't tell whose face, and she deliberately didn't look closely out of respect for the guest's privacy. But she noted that it was skilled, detailed work that clearly took significant time and concentration. Another source at a different hotel mentioned finding small Polaroid photographs arranged on the desk, not scattered randomly, but laid out in a deliberate sequence, like a visual story or a mood board. These details paint a picture of someone who, in the privacy of his hotel room, is constantly creating. Not for an audience. Not for content. Not for social media. For himself. For the pure, private need to make something beautiful in every space he occupies. Even if that space is a temporary hotel room he'll leave in 48 hours. And perhaps the most touching detail of all, one that multiple sources have mentioned independently, is what Taehyung does with the hotel's existing art. Several luxury hotels display artwork in guest rooms, prints, originals, curated pieces selected by interior designers to complement the room's aesthetic. Most guests ignore them entirely. Some guests actively dislike them. Taehyung? Staff have found evidence that he not only notices the art, he interacts with it. One source described finding a hotel room's framed print carefully removed from its hook and placed on the desk, leaned against the wall at an angle, as if Taehyung had taken it down to examine it more closely and perhaps to view it in different light. The print was undamaged, handled with obvious care, and returned to its original position before checkout. Another source described finding a hotel-provided art book, the kind that luxury properties sometimes place in suites as a decorative element, open to a specific page and left on the coffee table, with a small piece of hotel stationery tucked inside as a bookmark, as if Taehyung had been studying it and wanted to return to that page. This is a 20-something-year-old global pop star who, in the solitude of his hotel room, takes paintings off walls to look at them properly, who rearranges rooms to match his emotional state, who plays Chet Baker at low volume while sketching in warm lamplight. Number 2. And I need you to brace yourself for this one, because everything we've covered so far, the books, the gaming, the cleanliness, the midnight music production, the artistic room transformations, all of it was leading here to a habit so quietly powerful, so deeply emotional, and so profoundly revealing of someone's character that hotel staff who've witnessed it don't just remember it, they carry it with them. They tell this story with a softness in their voice that you can hear even through text. We're talking about Park Jimin, the dancer whose body moves like liquid mercury under stage lights, the vocalist whose voice can shift from silk to storm in a single breath, the man who, by every account from every person who's ever worked closely with BTS, is the emotional heartbeat of the group, the one who feels everything, carries everyone, and holds himself to a standard so impossibly high that it borders on self-punishment. And what Jimin does in his hotel room, after the concerts, after the cameras, after the world stops watching, it will wreck you. Let's start with what housekeeping and floor staff notice first, because it's the most immediately visible evidence, and it tells you everything you need to know about what kind of person Park Jimin is when the spotlight goes dark. The furniture in his room has been moved, but not like Taehyung's artistic rearrangement. This is different. This is functional, practical. The coffee table pushed against the wall, the armchair shoved into the corner, the luggage stand folded and leaned against the closet. Sometimes even the decorative rug rolled up and set aside. What's left is open floor space. As much open floor space as a hotel suite can possibly offer. And if you're a dance enthusiast, if you know anything about the physical demands of professional choreography, your heart just clenched, because you already know exactly what that cleared floor means. Park Jimin practices in his hotel room, alone, in the middle of the night, after performing a full concert. Let that sink in for a moment. This is a man who has just spent 2 to 3 hours on a stage executing some of the most physically demanding choreography in the entire pop music industry. Choreography that combines elements of contemporary dance, hip-hop, martial arts-inspired movement, and traditional Korean dance forms, while simultaneously singing live, managing stage presence, interacting with tens of thousands of fans, and maintaining the kind of razor-sharp synchronization with 6 other performers that BTS is famous for. The physical output of a single BTS concert has been compared by sports scientists to running a half marathon while doing gymnastics. His muscles are screaming. His joints are aching. His body is begging for rest. And what does Jimin do? He goes back to his hotel room, clears the furniture, and practices more. Multiple hotel sources describe the evidence consistently. Slight scuff marks on the hardwood or carpet from pivoting feet. The bathroom towels used in quantities that suggest someone has been sweating heavily, not from the earlier concert, because he would have showered before returning to the hotel, but from a second, private, solitary session in his room. Water bottles emptied at a rate that indicates a sustained physical activity. And sometimes, if the security guard on the floor is paying attention, the faintest sound of music playing from a phone or portable speaker, the same BTS tracks that were performed hours earlier at the concert, played on repeat, as Jimin watches himself in whatever reflective surface the room offers and drills the choreography over and over and over again. One security guard at a luxury hotel in Asia described hearing those sounds at approximately 2:45 a.m. and initially being concerned. Was something wrong? Was there an issue? He lingered near the door for a moment, listening, and what he heard was the unmistakable rhythm of BTS choreography playing at low volume, accompanied by the soft thud of feet executing precise movements on carpet. Not wild, not chaotic, controlled, deliberate, almost meditative in its repetition. The same 8-count phrase, again and again, with tiny pauses between repetitions where, the guard imagined, Jimin was resetting, evaluating, adjusting. The guard said he stood there for almost a minute before walking away, and what he felt wasn't concern anymore. It was something closer to reverence. I've guarded athletes, celebrities, politicians, he said. I've never encountered anyone who worked that hard when absolutely nobody was watching. And here's the thing that makes this habit so emotionally devastating when you understand Jimin's history. Park Jimin was the last member to be confirmed for BTS's final lineup. He entered Big Hit Entertainment as a trainee later than most of the other members, coming from Busan Arts High School where he'd been the top student in the contemporary dance department. A genuine prodigy, a kid whose teachers recognized rare physical talent and expressiveness. But when he arrived in Seoul, he was suddenly surrounded by trainees who had years more experience in the idol system, who understood the K-pop machine in ways he didn't, who had already built relationships and found their footing. By his own admission in multiple interviews over the years, Jimin felt like the weakest link. He's spoken openly, with a vulnerability that still shakes fans when they rewatch those clips, about feeling inadequate, about wondering whether he deserved to be in the group, about practicing until his body gave out, because he was terrified that if he stopped working for even one night, the gap between him and the others would become unclosable. That fear, that deep, primal, almost existential fear of not being enough, never fully went away. It just evolved. It went from a teenage trainee's desperation to a global superstar's perfectionism. The concert can be flawless. 60,000 people can scream his name. Every review can praise his performance. And Jimin will go back to his hotel room, clear the furniture, and practice the one transition that he felt was 0.3 seconds late, the one arm angle that he thought was 2 degrees off, the one moment where his weight distribution wasn't exactly where he wanted it to be. Not because anyone else noticed. Not because anyone else cared. Because he noticed. Because he cared. Because for Park Jimin, good enough is a concept that simply does not exist. Now here's where this story takes a turn that is going to absolutely destroy you emotionally, because the dancing isn't the only thing Jimin does in those late-night hotel hours. And what comes next is, in my opinion, the single most beautiful detail on this entire list. Multiple hotel staff members, security guards, night shift concierge personnel, hallway attendants, have independently described witnessing the same scene on multiple occasions across different hotels in different countries. Sometime between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m., after the practicing is done, after Jimin has showered and changed, his door opens quietly. Not loudly, not carelessly, quietly, with the careful, deliberate softness of someone who doesn't want to disturb anyone. And Park Jimin steps into the hallway. He doesn't go far. He walks down the corridor, slowly, softly, in slippers or bare feet, and he stops at each member's door. One by one. He doesn't knock. He doesn't try to enter. He just pauses, listens for a moment, checks that the do not disturb sign is in place, that the door is properly closed, that everything seems peaceful and secure. Then he moves to the next door, and the next, and the next. 7 rooms, 7 doors, one by one, like a quiet guardian making his rounds. One night security guard who witnessed this ritual described it with a shakiness in his voice that the interviewer noted seemed genuine. The first time I saw it, I thought he was sleepwalking, the guard said. I almost approached him, but then I watched him stop at a door, tilt his head slightly like he was listening, and then move on. And I realized he was checking on them. He was making sure they were okay. At 2 a.m., after a concert, after practicing alone for God knows how long, this kid was walking the hallway making sure his brothers were safe. Another source, a night concierge at a European hotel, described a similar scene with one additional detail that makes this almost unbearably poignant. On one occasion, after Jimin had completed his quiet rounds and was heading back to his own room, he noticed the concierge watching from the end of the hallway. Instead of being embarrassed or defensive, Jimin gave a small, slightly sheepish smile, put a finger to his lips in a gentle shoe gesture, and quietly slipped back into his room. The concierge said that single moment, that tiny, silent exchange, was one of the most human, most tender things they'd ever witnessed in years of working in luxury hospitality. Celebrities come and go, the concierge said. Most of them treat this place like it's a stage. He treated it like it was home. And those other rooms weren't hotel rooms to him. They were his family's bedrooms. And he was making sure his family was safe before he could allow himself to sleep. BTS members have occasionally hinted at this side of Jimin in interviews and behind-the-scenes content. Jungkook has called Jimin the most caring hyung. Taehyung, Jimin's soulmate best friend, has spoken about Jimin's almost maternal instinct to worry about others before himself. Jin once joked that Jimin is the unofficial manager of the group because he's always the one checking whether everyone has eaten, everyone is feeling okay, everyone is holding up. But what the hotel staff reveal adds a dimension that even the members might not fully articulate, that this caring doesn't stop when Jimin is exhausted. It doesn't pause when his body is breaking. It doesn't take a night off. Number 1. The final spot. The peak of this list. And if you've been watching from the beginning, through Namjoon's silent libraries, Jin's midnight gaming wars, Hoseok's supernatural cleanliness, Yoongi's shadow studios, Taehyung's living galleries, and Jimin's 3 a.m. hallway vigils, you might think there's nothing left that could possibly top what we've already covered. You'd be wrong. Because the hotel room habits of Jungkook, BTS's youngest member, the legendary Golden Magne, the boy who walked into a big-hit entertainment audition at the age of 13 with nothing but raw talent and terrified eyes, and has since become one of the most complete, most versatile, most devastatingly gifted performers in the history of modern pop music, are so layered, so intense, and so emotionally staggering that hotel staff who've experienced it describe their stays on Jungkook's floor as something they will genuinely never forget. Let's start with the most immediately obvious thing, because it's the thing that hits you the moment you open the door to his room, and it hit housekeeping staff like a freight train the first time they encountered it. Jungkook turns his hotel suite into a gym. Not metaphorically, not casually, not a few push-ups before bed. We're talking about a full-scale, sweat-soaked, muscle-burning physical training facility assembled from a combination of portable equipment he travels with and creative improvisation using the room's existing furniture. Multiple hotel sources across different continents describe the same scene with near-identical details, and the consistency of their accounts is what makes this so extraordinary. The desk chair, pulled to the center of the room, used for tricep dips and incline push-ups. The bathroom door frame, used for pull-ups. Yes, pull-ups on a hotel bathroom door frame. And before you ask, yes, staff have found subtle grip marks on the upper edges of door frames in rooms Jungkook has occupied, though never any actual damage because the man apparently knows exactly how to distribute his weight. Towels rolled up and used as makeshift grip pads. Water bottles, the large glass ones that luxury hotels provide, used as light weights for isolation exercises. The floor space cleared, not with Jimin's dancer precision, but with Jungkook's more instinctive, almost impatient energy, furniture shoved aside quickly to create a workout zone. And the towels. Oh, the towels. Every single housekeeping source mentions the towels. Not 2, not 3. Every towel in the room, bath towels, hand towels, face towels, the decorative towels that are more for display than function, used, soaked with sweat, and piled in the bathroom. One housekeeping attendant at a luxury hotel in the United States described counting 11 used towels in Jungkook's bathroom after a single night's stay. 11. The attendant said she initially thought there had been multiple guests in the room, but was informed it was a single occupancy. One person. 11 towels. That's not a workout. That's a war against physical limitation. And to understand why Jungkook does this, why he pushes his body to this extreme in a hotel room, after a concert, when every rational fiber of human biology is screaming for rest, you need to understand something fundamental about who Jungkook is and where he comes from. Jungkook arrived at Big Hit Entertainment in 2011, at the age of 13, from Busan. 13. Think about that. While most 13-year-olds are worrying about homework and crushes and video games, Jungkook left his family, moved to a city where he knew nobody, and entered a training system that is famously, almost notoriously, designed to break you down before it builds you back up. He's spoken about how shy he was, how he cried at night, how he missed his parents so badly that the older trainees, particularly Namjoon, Yoongi, Hoseok, and Jin, essentially became his surrogate family, teaching him how to survive not just as a trainee, but as a human being navigating the most disorienting years of adolescence in one of the most high-pressure environments imaginable. And from the very beginning, the way Jungkook coped with uncertainty, with homesickness, with the fear of failure, was by working. Not just hard, obsessively, relentlessly. If he couldn't control whether he'd debut, he could control how many hours he practiced. If he couldn't control whether the public would accept him, he could control how strong his body was, how high his notes could reach, how sharp his dance moves could land. That survival mechanism, work until the doubt shuts up, train until the fear can't keep up, crystallized into an identity. And now, over a decade later, in five-star hotels around the world, that identity still drives him into the ground every single night. But the workout is only the first layer of Jungkook's hotel room story, and honestly, it's not even the most remarkable part. Because after the physical training, after the push-ups and the pull-ups and the 11 towels, something else begins. Something that reveals the other side of the golden magne, the side that doesn't get enough attention, the side that makes hotel staff go quiet when they talk about it. Jungkook teaches himself things. In his hotel room. In the middle of the night. Alone. This is the characteristic that earned him the Golden Magne title in the first place. The almost supernatural ability to pick up any skill with startling speed. Filming, editing, photography, painting, cooking, sports. Name a discipline, and there's probably a clip somewhere of Jungkook trying it for the first time and being inexplicably good at it. But what the public sees is the result. What hotel staff see is the process. And the process is anything but effortless. Multiple sources describe finding evidence in Jungkook's room of intense, focused self-study sessions. A laptop open to video editing tutorials on YouTube, with a project file simultaneously open on the screen, as if he was learning and applying in real time. Drawing supplies spread across the desk. Pencils, erasers, reference images printed out or displayed on a tablet, with multiple attempts at the same sketch crumpled and discarded before a final version that, according to one housekeeping attendant who saw it, looked like it was done by someone who'd been drawing for years. Camera equipment laid out with the careful organization of someone who is studying the gear itself. Lens caps removed, settings adjusted, instruction manuals open on a phone beside the camera. One particularly striking account comes from a hotel employee who entered Jungkook's room for a mid-stay service and found a guitar sitting on the bed, next to a laptop displaying chord diagrams and a handwritten sheet of what appeared to be lyrics or chord progressions. The guitar was a travel-sized acoustic, compact enough to fit in touring luggage, and the employee noted that the bedsheets around it were wrinkled in a pattern that suggested someone had been sitting cross-legged on the bed for an extended period, hunching over the instrument, practicing. The employee, who happened to play guitar herself, noticed that the chord progression written on the paper was not a simple beginner exercise. It was complex, involving bar chords and transitions that even intermediate players struggle with. And yet the sheet was dated. Jungkook had written the date at the top, and it was from that same day, suggesting he'd been working on this specific progression during whatever downtime he'd had between arriving at the hotel and the cleaning window. That kind of focused self-improvement, happening silently in a hotel room while the rest of the world assumes you're resting, is the definition of the Golden Magne mythos made real. He's not golden because talent fell from the sky into his lap. He's golden because he works in the dark, alone, obsessively, at hours when nobody's watching and nobody would ever know if he stopped. But we're not at the emotional peak yet. We're close, but not there. Because the most powerful, most heart-shattering detail of Jungkook's hotel room habits is something that only a handful of staff have ever witnessed, and when they describe it, the room goes quiet. Late at night, very late, 3 or 4 a.m., after the workout, after the skill practice, after the guitar, and the drawing and the video editing. Hotel staff have described passing Jungkook's room and hearing something unexpected through the door. Not music, not exercise sounds, not the click of a keyboard. Video. The sound of voices, familiar voices. Laughter. Crowd noise. The tinny, compressed audio quality of old video footage being played through a laptop speaker. On more than one occasion, staff have identified what was being played as old BTS content. Early stuff. Pre-debut footage. Rookie-era performances. The raw, unpolished, achingly young versions of 7 boys who had nothing but a dream and each other. One night shift security guard described hearing what he was almost certain was BTS's debut stage, No More Dream, from 2013, playing softly from behind Jungkook's door at approximately 3:30 a.m. The guard, who was familiar with BTS's music due to the frequency of their hotel stays, recognized the track and the audio quality. It sounded like a YouTube rip of a music show performance, complete with audience reactions and host commentary. He paused, listening, and then heard something that made his breath catch. Underneath the video audio, barely audible, the faint sound of someone crying. Not sobbing, not breaking down, just quiet, steady tears. The kind of crying that happens when emotion rises up so suddenly and so completely that there's no point in fighting it. The guard stood there for a long moment, debating whether to check on the guest.
And there you have it. 7 members, 7 hotel rooms, 7 windows into the private lives of the most influential boy band in the history of music. From RM transforming suites into philosophical libraries, to Jin waging midnight gaming wars fueled by room service and laughter, to J-Hope leaving rooms so immaculate that housekeeping questioned reality, to Suga building invisible recording studios in total darkness, to V rearranging furniture like a painter composing a masterpiece, to Jimin dancing alone at 3 a.m. and then walking the hallway to make sure every member was safe, to Jungkook pushing his body to the limit, teaching himself the world and crying to old BTS videos in the quietest hours of the night. What you've just heard isn't gossip, it isn't celebrity trivia, it's a portrait of 7 human beings who, behind closed doors, are exactly who they appear to be on stage: dedicated, complex, deeply caring, impossibly hardworking, and profoundly, beautifully real. The next time you check into a hotel, any hotel, take a moment before you sleep. Look around the room. Think about what your habits say about you when nobody's watching, because that's the truest version of who you are. And if BTS has taught us anything, it's that the truest version is always worth seeing. Thanks for watching. If this list moved you, if it made you see BTS even a little differently, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, greatness isn't what happens on stage. Greatness is what happens when the door closes and you're the only one in the room. See you on the next list.